What is growth hormone? Does it work? And why have I stopped taking it? Stick around to find out all the answers to that and more in today's episode of Common Sense Bodybuilding. Growth hormone, or somatotropin, is a growth-stimulating peptide. It's responsible for those growth spurts that we get as a kid. In the land of the free and the home of pharmaceutical drugs abuse, growth hormone has risen to popularity in anti-aging circles for its benefits to hair, skin, and nails. Not to mention its long-reigning use within the bodybuilding community to help to stimulate growth and as an overall growth promoter. So what's it like? Does it work? Well, the first signs that you've got legitimate growth hormone on your hands is going to be water retention, and it's going to come thick and fast. You can expect anywhere between 3 to 5 pounds worth of water retention from a moderate growth hormone dose. Yes, you will look fuller, but you'll also look a little bit softer. It's a bit like an inflated balloon. Now, this is all well and good when it comes to looking saucy in the gym. However, when it comes to, trying to get a nice night's sleep, it may cause a few problems. The first real problem that I had with growth hormone, or significant effect, was carpal tunnel syndrome. This is where the water weight starts to put pressure on your carpal tunnel and basically causes a form of cramping. Now, it's not unbearable, but it is unpleasant, especially when for your job you might need to write, or if you just want a night's sleep without waking up in agony. Rest assured, these effects will diminish. It took about 4 to 6 weeks for me to see these effects at least get to the point where they weren't causing me to wake up in the middle of the night or feel any particular discomfort on a constant basis. However, as you might expect from a mild compound, that is pretty much where the negative side effects stop. Once you get past waking up with a dead forearm, you will start to see the benefits in terms of rest, recovery, and sleep. When I started taking growth hormone, the sleep benefits were apparent after just a few weeks. My sleep would be deeper, it would feel like it's better quality, and as somebody who smokes weed, that is a major benefit because that can affect your REM sleep. However, this did come with a bit of a downside, so I guess the side effects weren't limited just to the water weight, in that I did want to sleep pretty much all the time. Now granted, the start of the use of my growth hormone did coincide with my bulk, so of course you've got the effects of food and trying to digest that to contend with as well. But I will say I did notice that I wanted to sleep far more often. It got to the point where pretty much every meal was a cue for a nap. When you're trying to hold down a 9 to 5 job and you're tired all the time, it's not necessarily conducive to a productive day. Now, you can actually meddle with when you inject growth hormone in order to sort of try and counteract some of these side effects. I found that with fatigue and the lethargy that I felt from growth, if I pinned everything at the end of the day, just before I went to bed, generally speaking, I'd have a little bit more energy throughout the day versus splitting it over AM, PM. If you don't have a 9 to 5 to contend with, the extra sleep might be a welcome addition to your off season in order to maximize recovery and take full advantage of the benefits of this drug. Now, I'm somebody who felt the effects of anabolics on the hairline. My widow's peaks are damn pronounced, but generally speaking, growth hormone did help with this. I'm not saying that it necessarily significantly reduced the shedding, but it did help improve the hair quality, which probably played a factor in slightly less hair loss. And let's face it, it's not meant to be a hair loss drug, right? But it can help make it feel thicker and healthier at least. Then there's the other benefits the anti-aging community have latched onto and love. That's the skin and nail benefits. I'm somebody who also bites my nails. It's a terrible habit that I've had for as long as I can remember. God knows why, I probably need to see a therapist, but this became damn near impossible when I was on growth hormone. My nails got thicker than ever before. Right now they're thin and flimsy, but I only feel that way because I've felt what they're like on growth hormone. Honestly, it's like ripping a concrete slab off your fingers when you try and bite down on them suckers, and it's a pretty good job there, so maybe it's the world's most expensive nail-biting correction system. And in terms of skin, I don't know. My skin's a bit of a nightmare anyway, up and down fluctuating. Sometimes I have acne, sometimes I don't. But the other lifestyle effects were felt, and growth hormone, generally speaking, improved my sleep, recovery, my appearance. I felt better on growth. I'm sure we can figure out some use for the swollen hands. In terms of gains, growth hormone isn't really one to shout about. This is definitely more of a long-term play in terms of helping your bodybuilding journey, and I feel like it may also be a drug where the side effects in terms of sleep and recovery and all those kind of factors play more into the muscle growth benefits than any direct benefit from injecting growth itself. It's not going to pack on masses of muscle like starting on anabolics, but it is going to help to contribute towards more growth in the long run. Then why did I stop? Now, first of all, when you start taking growth hormone, you might think, okay, it's maybe 150, 180 pound a month. It might be worth it. And then you start to realize what else comes with it. Now, granted, in bulking, you're going to want to use some form of GDA, glucose disposal agent anyway, but growth hormone significantly impacts insulin sensitivity, so that pretty much becomes mandatory. So, okay, we added metformin in at 500 milligrams per day. What next? Well, it turns out that growth hormone also carries with it some necessity of using T4. Now, this has only flagged to me recently, and please do correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but it seems like current thinking is that T4 is significantly affected, or your thyroid at least, and that supplementation of T4 is pretty well mandatory with growth. This basically just represents the sort of cascading events in terms of drug use that growth can bring about, especially given the fact that long term, it makes more sense to utilize insulin alongside growth hormone. So now we're doing insulin, growth, and anabolics. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, of course not. Insulin's an affordable drug, fine, and it doesn't deserve necessarily the bad rap it's given, and utilizing all the pathways for growth is all part of the safer use approach. However, here we come into the second part of my reason, and that's money. I don't know if you noticed, but we are on the verge of economic collapse and doom, and I have personally felt it in my pocket, paying for energy bills, and pretty much anything in this world now has jumped significantly in price. The UK is facing like 10% inflation, it's the worst for 40 years, and things are only going to get worse as the markets start to react and our economy falls to pieces. What does that mean? Well, our money goes less far, and unfortunately, running stuff like Primobolan and approaching bodybuilding with the level of commitment that I try to, it's already an expensive endeavour, trust me. Especially when you choose to live in Surrey, which is the most expensive county in the UK. Now, I'm not saying growth hormone objectively isn't worth the price. I'm saying that when you factor in the fact that that would have meant to continue utilising growth hormone with my current economic situation, I would have had to compromise on my compound selection with my anabolic stack, and likely had to switch my Primo over to Mast, which I'm not really that keen to do, to be honest. I've utilised Masteron for a short period of time, and I didn't like the way it felt compared to Primobolan. I haven't utilised it for an extended period yet, so that's not my final judgment, but I love Primobolan so much, and it is an anabolic, so it will have a more significant effect on gains to be able to run that drug versus growth hormone, at least in the short term. It actually costs double the price of Primobolan per month, and it's going to do less for muscle gain. Well, the odds are just stacked against it for me. When you're shelling out the same as you do on your total anabolic stack on something which has a minimal effect on muscle gain, it does become hard to justify it. If you had unlimited funds, I would absolutely say to make growth hormone a part of your stack. However, when you're coming to choose between things, or when you have a limited budget, growth, for me, at least at the levels that you could afford, isn't going to be worth it. If you're having a limited budget and you could afford to run 5, 6, 7 IUs, fine, go ahead, and I'm sure you'll reap the rewards. But when you're talking about squeezing your pockets to run 2 to 3 IUs, I just don't see the ROI being there if you're making that kind of a decision. I didn't just drop growth hormone and then leave those gains off the table. I put some of that money that I would have spent on growth hormone towards a bit of an additional Primobolan dose. I think the highest that I've been before was about 700 milligrams, and we're currently running 900, running up to a gram per week in the not too distant future. For me, it's both an experimentation, and because why not? It's still within the clinically trialed dose, it's mild, I love the way I feel on it, and for me, Primobolan is just a beautiful drug to implement in an anabolic stack, especially considering it also allowed you to utilize slightly higher doses of other aromatizing compounds. So quite simply, I didn't want to introduce more drugs to my stack, and I couldn't afford to do that, let alone maintain the same price for growth hormone on a monthly basis. Dropping growth hormone allowed me to put more money towards my anabolics, and specifically Primobolan, and most importantly, it meant that I didn't need to pin subcutaneously every day alongside intramuscularly for my anabolic stack. Now, please don't take this video as advice. I am not a doctor. I don't know what I'm talking about, but the important thing to bear in mind here is not to put unnecessary stress on your financial or personal situation, but something which has a marginal ROI in terms of bodybuilding. Sure, the more you can do, the better, but not all of us have got daddy's trust fund to pull on. to run all the pharma anabolics and high quality HGH. Not just that, but far too many people throw the kitchen sink at this game far too early in the process and have nothing left in the toolkit for later on. Now, does the safer use model say that you should introduce all this stuff as early as possible, and is growth hormone a long-term benefit kind of drug? Yes, absolutely. But starting it at 25 versus 27, I honestly don't see that dramatic of a change. Is it going to be more important as you rise up the ranks? Absolutely. But when that time comes, you're probably going to be able to afford the good stuff and lots of it. What's your experience with growth hormone? Was it worth it? Let us know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.